parsha because it is so instrumental, so important, so crucial, but mostly because of the fact that probably so misunderstood also as well. It's Parshas Bechukosai. This is the last parsha of Yikra. Normally, we read it back to back with Parshas Bahar, which was last week, but because it was a leap year, so it makes it a little bit easier. The Balkara on those people who do Shnei Mechachad Targum in advance of Shabbos, because we split up the Parshiyot, and they're both a lot shorter, except for the Aliyah, third Aliyah, which happens to be about the famous Klalos. As we know, that the Klalos, the curses in this week's Parsha, first of all, the bruchas, the blessings for doing the right thing, and then, of course, the curses that come after that for doing the wrong thing, and then there are, which there are 49. And those are considered to be directly from Hashem through Moshe Rabbeinu, but they originate with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Sefer Devarim is considered to be Moshe Rabbeinu speaking on his own, but God talking through him, but more directly through Moshe Rabbeinu himself. And so Parshas Kisavo, which is the other really scary parsha, dealing again with the exact same thing, has double the amount, has 98 curses instead, but we can assume they're basically the same idea. It's not that Moshe added more curses, but was more specific, more detailed. This is towards the beginning of the 40 years in the Midbar. That's towards the end of the 40 years, the Midbar, a whole different generation. You read us a Doris already, going down in generations, and so, but God was maskim, he agreed to all of it. Nothing that Moshe said was superfluous, extra anyway. The difference, among other differences, between this week's parsha and the one that comes up later on, the Varim, in advance of Rosh Hashanah, usually we read this anyhow every year in advance of Shavuos, because of the fact that the Torah is giving us everything, and we're supposed to live by the Torah. And so this is kind of like a preamble, if you will, a warning in advance of receiving Torah, what's expected from us, and how things are supposed to go, and how we're supposed to participate in it. And you grew up, especially, I mean, for me personally, you grew up in Western society, and you get used to this idea of reward and punishment, this idea that you have to do the right thing, and you can live a decent life doing the right thing, and if you listen, in the Western world at least. And then if you do the wrong thing, you're punishable. And one of the reasons why you're punishable, because society requires people to do the right thing. Otherwise, how can you go to bed at nighttime with any security if you're living in society where people are constantly stealing or murdering or doing all kinds of terrible things? So to maintain the security of society, you have to have rules, and you have to abide by those rules, and you have to enforce those rules. The Torah itself says in Parshas Shoftim, you have to Shoftim Shotrim, right? You have to put up judges and police in every gate, meaning everywhere Jews live, you have to have both. You have to have the judges to decide who's innocent, who's guilty, and you have to, of course, have a police force to decide who is punishable, because you have to put the fear of the law in people in order to maintain the sanctity and the security of society. And that's the way we look at it. That's the way we tend to live with it. And also part of the end of days. The end of days is judgment. It's not just God wrapping things up and cleaning things out. I mean, that is definitely a part of it, no question about that. But it's a judgment. The end of days is a judgment. What Hashem is going to do when the final curtain has to come down on history and mankind, we're going to enter the Messianic era, which is no Yetzer Hara, and only the good people survive. And when I say good people, I don't necessarily mean the obviously good people, because there are some people who are born behind the 8 ball, and you can't expect much more. And their level of goodness might be completely different than someone who's born, in a family where they're entitled, and they have all kinds of blessing from day one. They have good parents, good family, good money, good house, all the things that you need for a happy childhood. Of course, this person should grow up and be a stable individual. But someone who's born without all of that stuff, then it's very hard for them to be normal. So God, of course, judges them differently on not different standard. Well, really the same standard, but different handicaps that they have to take into account. And this is basically what Yom Adin is all about. The final day of judgment, which is later on in the future in the world to come, after we've gone through all the cleansing processes we're supposed to go through, not part of this world, where God will take into account everything that we did, everything that we could have done, everything that we were responsible for, given our free will and the opportunity we had, and then we're judged. But even still, the Gemara says, for example, in Gemara Pesachim, Gemara Rosh Hashanah, actually, because Yud Dalet Amud Aleph talks about the 4 different times a year. Well, it starts off talking about the different Rosh Hashanahs that there are, and of course, there's one by Pesach. The most famous Rosh Hashanah that most people know about is the one, of course, by Tishrei, which comes in the fall, because that's the one where everybody has to participate. Everyone is involved. You get a shul and you pray for forgiveness, and you have a sudas, and it's Yantif. So everyone's aware of that particular din. But there's also a din by Pesach time. There's also a Rosh Hashanah for wheat at that time, because that's when God decides if the upcoming crop, it's going according to Eretz Yisrael, because that's when you harvest, when the first harvest is in that time, and God determines at that time whether we're worthy to have a good crop, and it's a point in terms of the previous year's crop and the upcoming crop. But then the Gemara goes on to say, not just 4 times a year, and not just even every day, but every hour and every moment. We're being judged all the time, and the whole point of it is not that God is looking for a way to punish somebody, because if he was looking for a way to punish somebody, he could do it in a second. He can do it all the time. He could create the pretext, and he has done that before in the past. It's to improve us. It's to give us more out of life, because we underachieve. Without a Yitzhar, the Gemara says that Rabbi Alexandri used to say at the end of his Shemona Esrei, he inserted a special Yehi Ratzon as part of his ending of the Shemona Esrei. And he said that, Rabbanu Shalom, right, the master of the universe, that our main desire is to serve you. That's all we want to do, is to serve you. And the only reason why we don't is because of the Se'or Shebe'isa, which means the leaven in the dough, talking about the Yetzer Hara in the body. Right? It's a metaphor. And Shibud Malchius, the fact that the nations are on our case, right? Times yes, times no. Today, very much so, are on our case. If they worry about them and they're attacking us and whatever else, it makes it difficult to be focused, difficult to live a life that is based upon Torah mitzvahs, especially in the older days when you had Nebuchadnezzar and you had Sennacherib, you had all these people were conquering all the time, and Eretz Yisrael is right in the middle, the crux of Asia and Europe. It's a hinge point, or they're a very strategic place to be. So people are always either going to war against Israel, trying to capture it, or at least going through it on the way to Asia and other places as well. And these two things interfere. So at first, when I saw that Gemara the first time, I thought to myself, wishful thinking, or he's definitely a tzaddik, but he's not talking about me. That's not my main desire. I have to convince myself that this is the right thing to do. I have to accustom myself to Torah mitzvahs, and then I have to inspire myself to do them with kavanah and with seriousness. But it's not my go-to thing every single day. I'm not constantly looking for mitzvahs all the time to do just for the sake of doing them. And the more I thought about it, the more I understood what he was trying to say, not just to Hashem, but to us as well. What he's telling us that no, that distance you feel, that lack of connection that you feel to Torah mitzvahs is not you. You, in essence, you're connected to God. In essence, as the Rizal says on the very first page of Shahya Gagulin, the gate of reincarnations, he says right there, you are the soul. You're not your body. Your body, no matter how much you identify with it, how much you recognize yourself through your body, it's like clothing. It's all clothing. And clothing meaning that you can shed it, you can get rid of it, and you're not going to lose from yourself. Yourself, in essence, is your soul. That's who you are. So we're so detached from that. We're so used to feeling the world through our physical senses, through the body, and thinking through our body, even if we're spiritual, right? We're trying to connect to Kosh Baruch Hu in a way that is kind of spiritual, but not exactly the way that ultimately it should be. And as a result of that, you get used to it after a while and we identify with this level of connection to Hashem. But the reality is that that's not the case. We are servers of God. That's what we are in essence. That's what we're trying to do. We are the ones who are, just driven And if you take away the body, if the body is neutralized, the soul would fly right out and want to connect to Hashem. So the fact that if you don't feel that way, that's just a way of measuring how much the body has influence over you, and the work that you have to do to overcome that. Now, there's only so much you can do in this world at this stage of history, and that's a handicap. But it's amazing how much you can accomplish if you set your mind to it. And you just see this all the time. I mean, that's why it says, "B'makom shel balei tshuva omdim ein tzadikim gemurim omdim." In the place that balei tshuva stand, even the completely righteous can't stand. Moshe Rabbeinu said to the Jewish people before he died, before he went up the mountain one last time, he said to the Jewish people, "You can do something that I could not do. I could not be a Baal Tshuva. You can be a Baal Tshuva. Why can't I be a Baal Tshuva? Not because I don't want to do Tshuva. I don't need to do Tshuva. I've never really sinned in such a way, or at least whatever mistakes I did, I made up for them, and I can't go any higher because I just can't get myself to do the kind of sin that you might have done, right, to have to do Tshuva for." And as it says, the 50th gate of wisdom is reserved for the Balei Tshuva, because it's a level of appreciation, understanding, having come from lower levels, going to higher levels. You see, for example, Balei Tshuva. There are people who were completely secular, who, for whatever reason, whatever mazel they had, whatever brocha they had, they woke up. They came across something or somebody that allowed them to realize that what they once thought was archaic and ancient and had nothing to do with anything in reality was in fact the truth, and therefore they began slowly but surely moving in that direction, starting off slowly. And in the beginning, I mean, you don't feel like praying. It's very hard. It's very awkward, very uncomfortable. Yeah, everyone prays a little bit once in a while, but there's a huge difference between somebody who feels desperate, feels the need to talk to God on whatever level they believe, and it's coming from their heart because they're the ones originating it. But the hardest thing, one of the most difficult things about becoming a Baal Tshuva is having to say somebody else's words that you didn't compose yourself, and you've yet to understand. One of the greatest pieces of advice I got many, many years ago, like 45, 50 years ago, was that take each brocha of the Shemona Esrei and sit down and think to yourself, what does this mean to you? Tachani ladam da'as, right? Or just about Kedusha, or about doing tshuva, and think out or talk out with somebody else is even better a lot of times. We have these things called tshuva groups in yeshiva, where we get together as a group, a chabura, and discuss ideas to do with tshuva. And it's amazing how much you bring out of yourself and how much you get from others just from these casual conversations about tshuva. And it elevates you. It inspires you. And as a result of that, the deeper... Here's the amazing thing. This is the part that really blows me away. Is that, sometimes in life, for example, quantum mechanics, okay? Maybe the angel also taught me quantum mechanics inside the womb. I don't think so, because I don't get that aha feeling when I learn any of it. It's still like, well, okay, whatever you say. But if you want to know more about how the physical world works based upon current scientific theory, you have to do the work. You have to take the books and take the material and learn it and try to understand it, digest it, and contemplate it until finally it makes sense to you, if it makes sense to you. And that's a struggle. And that's why many people don't do it, because it's extra work. For some people, life is difficult enough as it is. And therefore, I don't need to have any additional difficult work and understanding at this point in time. Let me just deal with what I have to deal with right now. But the amazing thing about Torah and the amazing thing about wisdom is how much is already inside of you. Just like the world itself. Right now, I'm just working on a book on inspiration. What it is. Of course, everyone knows what it is. They've all felt it, but what it truly is and how to access it on an ongoing basis, and how to be able to harness it, to use it on a moment-to-moment basis. You don't just go from burst of inspiration to burst of inspiration, which could take a long time in between, because most of society is uninspired. People do the crazy stuff they do because they're uninspired. Their life is boring for so many people. The reason why the entertainment industry makes billions upon billions of dollars, trillions by now probably, is not because people say, well, this is the most meaningful thing society can produce, let's support it. It's because That's what keeps them going. That's what keeps them inspired, keeps them up to some degree. It's like temper, it's like a chocolate bar. It tastes amazing. While you're eating it, it's wonderful. It feels so good to have it, if you don't think about the calories, if you can afford to eat without thinking twice about it, right? But yeah, the better, or a steak or something like that. And for the time that you're having it, it feels great. And life feels just wonderful. But the moment you finish, well, not the moment exactly, but after a while, as the taste disappears and your stomach feels not so full anymore, it comes back within hours, not within days. It'd be nice if you could have a good steak or something delicious. It doesn't have to be food, but some experience you can have, and the effect of it lasts for days or weeks or months. And then you wouldn't have to go chasing after new ones all the time or spend money on new ones. Inspiration is that way. We walk around with the potential for inspiration on a moment-to-moment basis, but we lock it away. People wait to be inspired from the outside. That's why it's the craziest thing in the world is paying motivational speakers, no offense to motivational speakers, right? So much money to do what? To help us realize the potential that we have inside to be motivated. No one taught it to us. We want to feel that, but we don't know how to access it. So someone comes along and says something inspiring, but it's his words or her words, whatever, but it's going inside. It's talking to something inside of us that's already there. You take a flower, a simple flower, and you look at it, blue, red, whatever, and you smell it. Oh, it smells beautiful. It looks wonderful, right? But if you could, let's say, for example, somehow shrink down and go inside the flower and see all the different, parts of it and how they interact with each other, and the water in such minuscule amounts is able to go from the stem all the way up to the leaves and somehow feed this and cause this to happen, and this happens to bloom, and this color comes out, and there's pollen inside, the bees come. It's like a whole ecological system in one little flower. Or water, how water works. It's mesmerizing. Of course, the sun rising, the sun setting. If you just happen to contemplate what that sun is, to this very day, it's mind-boggling how the sun is 93 million miles away. 93 million miles away. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. It's just right. I know. We get freezing cold weather, and they get boiling hot weather too, 100%. The weather can go up and down because of the atmosphere, but overall, we're still here. It's a problem to live on Mars. We can't walk around on Mars like this. Not with some kind of life system. We can't walk around Venus at all because it's too hot, right? And you go further away, it gets even worse. So Earth, okay, you're right, yeah, 100%. That's why we're on Earth. Earth is the one planet that just happens to be the right distance from the sun to be able to support life. Fine, whatever. But still, it's 93 million miles away, providing us every single day, now for thousands upon thousands of years, everything that the world requires to survive and to live. Yeah, you just go outside, you sit down in the sun, it just feels good. The warmth, of that sun on your face, and it just feels so therapeutic, right? And there's radiation, 100%. Don't stay too long in the sun. But all that aside, it's not like a light bulb just flicked on. It's the sun with thermonuclear explosion taking place every single moment in levels and ways that we don't understand, coming in fully at this point in time. Out there, a star burning up, lasting a long period of time, and taking care of our lives. And this is what the Rambam is talking about. The Rambam is saying, he asked the question, how does one come to love and fear God? And then he explains to us, how do you do it? So it says, first of all, he implies this part. He says that the mitzvah is not actually to love and fear God. It is to love and fear God, but God's not saying, love me right now on the spot. Because he built this. He knows we can't do that. You can't just love something or love somebody. It takes time. You have to build towards love, right? The more you know someone, and the more, the working definition that my Rosh Hashiva had for love was the emotional pleasure one feels upon seeing the virtue in something else. And it's very true. And you see how true that really is. We love virtue. When we see virtue, we tend to love it. We don't love people who are not virtuous, no matter how much we idolize them, how much we admire them. But if that person is not virtuous in the end, it's very hard to love them. You can want to be like them in some ways, but you can't love them. You cannot love evil. You cannot love a lack of good. It's just not the way we're made. And if you think you have, or you are, it's wrong. And you have to check it out, because it's more like infatuation, which can happen anything to anything and anywhere. But that's not real love in the end. So the Rambam says the mitzvah to love God, therefore, is to do that which will bring you to the love of God, which according to our definition means do that which reveals the virtue of God and all that he has done. That's not hard to do. He says you just sit down and contemplate the great and phenomenal, and this is before microscopes and telescopes and scientific experimentation like we have today. He was a doctor. His doctors could be at that time, but what they knew back then versus what we know today, right, is literally like night and day. And we should be in awe, complete awe, every single day by this world that we live in. We should be hugely fascinated by it. And if we are hugely fascinated by it, we'd be inspired all the time, every moment, because the world is just incredibly exciting. So why doesn't it feel like that? Why doesn't it seem that way to us? Distraction. We get distracted, get pulled away. It's like taking a beautiful gold bar, right? Beautiful. You look at this gold bar, you're holding it. It's heavy. It is, it really feels like something. It's got nice, writing on it, the value. You're holding it as a gold bar that's worth $1,000 or $2,000 or $10,000. You're holding it, and then someone puts it into a key suite. They put into an encasement, a covering, a beautiful wood box, but it's not the gold bar anymore. It's inside, right? And after a while, can I take a look? No. Can I look? No. And this goes on days, and then months, and then years, and maybe even decades. You can't open that box. And after a while, even though there's a gold bar inside that box, somehow you lose touch with it. And you start to forget about it. And you get distracted by life. It doesn't cross your mind. Every once in a while, something might remind you, remember that box with the gold bar inside? Yeah, I wonder what that gold bar is doing right now. It's like, but you don't feel connected, because that's the way we work. If we're not constantly, connected to something, and that's life itself. Life has this, this covering of it. It's like an encasement that forces us to become desensitized to the wonder of life. I've made this point before, and it's an important point to reiterate. We say in Tehillim, and we say it in Hallel, Me'es Hashem haisa zos, He nifas be'einenu. This is from God, that which is wondrous in our eyes. So the question is, everything is from God, not just that which is wondrous from our eyes. So then what is it? What's it telling us? It's telling us a corollary, right? If you're not seeing everything from God, I mean, you make a bracha to remind yourself, would you that bracha? Did you make that? If you're sitting at someone's table, right, and you don't have permission to eat yet, you don't just reach for something. You're saying, "I would mind." No, you say, "Can you please pass, the spaghetti or whatever it is you're passing? Please, may I have some, please?" You ask, and you ask sincerely. You don't make it seem like you don't care. You're not really believing that you have to do it without respect. You do it a serious way, and you make a bracha. Even more so, you're talking to the master of the universe. So many people don't get it. At least they get it enough, at least to make the bracha. Good, Baruch Hashem. Other people don't even make the bracha. Once upon a time, everyone made blessings before they ate, and they thank God after they ate. Today, not so much, right? And those who do, kavana, intention, could be better, right? It's hard. It's hard work to focus, but not if you're believing it. Not if you really believe that the only reason why I have this food on my plate is because God put it there today. There's no guarantee he'll put it there tomorrow. I mean, how quickly the world changes. How quickly things can happen in a way you never saw coming, thinking, taking for granted that you would always be able to have something, always be able to do something, and boom, just like that, the situation has changed all the time. I mean, World War II, there are people who came to Europe, Jews who came to Europe on a business trip, wondering, is it still safe enough to go? Maybe yes, maybe no. They went anyhow, and they couldn't get back. They couldn't get back. They couldn't leave the continent, because by the time everything unfolded, it was too late. Just like that, their whole life changed, their family life, everything just changed. And if a person understands that the consistency of life, someone that was walking home from shul on Shabbos with somebody, we're talking about this idea, and he said to me, he said, he sits in his living room and he looks around at everything he has. Now, I've done that similar thing once in a while, but what he said was beautiful. He said that everything I see, I realize, is a solution to a problem that somebody had. It's an answer to a question that somebody asked. We don't think like that. You see a break front, you see a table, you see chairs, you see food, whatever. It's there, right? Someone made it, put it there. It's there. It's part of life. But someone said, where can I put books? Let's build shelves. That's the solution. Okay, I built shelves, but they're not strong enough. Let me use stronger wood. There's a process to get to the finished product that you finally go and you buy something that works, right? There's a computer, the amount of technology and genius that was involved in producing a computer so you can simply sit down and press the on button, start typing away. I get impatient watching the thing boot up. It's like, what's taking so long? He's like, little Apple comes on, and takes a couple of once in a while, once upon a time, it took a lot, 3-4 times longer than that. And it couldn't even do a fraction. Right? That's all it could do was a fraction of a fraction of what it can do today. But the technology involved, the questions that had to be asked and the answers that had to be gotten, we don't think about that. We just take it all for granted. Happy and wealthy is the person who does not take life for granted, who does not take for granted what they have, who they are. Health is a big one, especially as you get older. Things were just so simple when you're younger. Just things function for the most part well, if you're lucky, if you're fortunate to have good health. But as you get older, it doesn't work the same way anymore. And you start to appreciate more and more how much easier it was when you were younger and how much harder you have to work now to maintain your health. Once upon a time, they didn't take pills. Took an aspirin once in a while if you had to. Maybe a person had asthma for a while. But then as you get older, you see people sit down, they take 10, 15, 20 pills. We're not talking vitamins. We're talking pills for blood pressure, for heart blood flow, for this thing, but just to stay alive, just to maintain their health. Every single day they have to do this. And they don't take it for granted because every day they're forced to have to do, open up the bottles, take out the pills, organize, make sure to take it the right way, the right time. That's the crux of this week's Parsha. And that's really, more than ever, this week's Parsha talks to us. Even though it's already been fulfilled, as Rashi points out, in earlier generations. But there's just one word in the entire Parsha, the entire story that tells it all. Tells everything we're supposed to be focused on, everything we're supposed to understand, what goes right and what goes wrong. The curses, it's really cause and effect. The Gemara talks about how there's really no reward and punishment in this world. Reward is in the world to come. Punishment is in Gehenna. And whatever you're seeing in this world that seems like punishment, it's more to do with Hester Pani. We caused God to go into hiding, so to speak, or at least we hid from him. He hides from us. And this is what a world looks like when God has to make it look like it's random for the sake of Hester Pani, of the hiding of God's face. And the curses that happen, that's a cause and effect relationship. If you take your fist and you pound it into the wall, it's going to hurt. The laws of physics say that when it's something fleshy like your hand, no matter there's knuckles and bones and all that, but the wall's harder. And you hit the wall, and you do it enough times, you're going to see blood in your knuckles after a while. And you can say what a punishing effect that is. And it is a punishing effect. There's no question about that. But it wouldn't have happened had you not pounded the wall with your fist or your head, whatever the case may be. You did that. And that's the result. That's the effect of the cause you created. The trouble is, if I take my fist and I hit the wall, I know exactly what I've done. I can see it. If I don't sleep enough and I get tired, I know I did that. I didn't sleep enough. And if I get sick, I don't know for sure that's what's causing it, but there's a good chance it's part of it, or I don't eat properly, don't take care of my health, and I can, indirectly you can sense. The confusing part is when you sleep enough and eat well and everything, etc., and you still get sick sometimes. There are people during Corona who didn't even go out. They stayed in the house, like most of the time, they still got it somehow, some way. Yeah, okay, a lot of divine providence involved. But the word is carry. The word is carry. Kuf Reish Yud, where God says that I'm going to do this. You're going to do that. I'm going to do this to wake you up, not to punish you, to show you the effect of your cause, to wake you up. And you can have a choice at that point. You can have a choice. You're going to choice to wake up and say, wait a second, this is not the way things should be going. This must be a message, Minas Shemayim. This is not something that just happens to happen. I have to acknowledge this is from Hashem, right? Especially if it stands out of my eyes. I forgot to explain the corollary of Meis Hashem Zos. What David Melech is saying to us is that, no, it's not just the things that stand out. Everything is from Hashem. But if you stop seeing it from Hashem, Bekeri, it's because you stop seeing the wonder in what's around you. You got used to it. You took it for granted, became bored with it. And when that fascination with life starts to disappear, when that sense of wonder starts to dwindle and wane, then life starts to become boring. When life starts to become boring, you lose the ability to see the hand of Hashem that's taking place. And that's what happens to the Jewish people. That's what the Torah is talking about. If you will deal with what I'm going to send, listen, God agrees. If I disguise it in a way that there's no way for you to know it's from me, I can't blame you for that. What do I expect? No. Obviously, I'm sending to you in a way that you can, if you choose, to see it as the hand of Hashem. And that's why I can say, if you act insensitively, if you act as if you don't see the truth, if you say, no, it doesn't necessarily mean I have to go. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm doing the wrong thing. It doesn't necessarily mean I have to do tshuva. It could, I agree, I admit it could, but it doesn't have to necessarily mean that. So I have a choice. I can say, just in case it does mean that, let me fix things up. And God says, great, fantastic. That's the right decision. If you need to fix it up, fix it up. If you got nothing wrong, get nothing wrong. But who can say that? But if you're going to come back and say, yeah, but the fact that anti-Semitism is rising once again in the world, the fact that the world seems to be becoming less logical, less reasonable, more dependent on more of the wrong things, more devices distracting us from the truth and reality of life, more permissiveness, than there was before. And the world is not, the path it's on is not the one towards tshuva, is not the one towards fixing it up closer to the way Torah expects mankind to be, but the other direction, and things start to unwind and to fall apart. You have a choice. You can either deal with it as a Metzias, as the hand of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Oh, but it's thousands of years later. We have no prophets today, no Nevi'im to tell us what God is thinking, to tell us that this is from Hashem, right? Not that that made much of a difference in Yirmiyahu's time, or Yechezkel's time, Yeshaiah's time, and they were some of the biggest prophets the last couple of thousand years. And they spoke the truth, and they talked to God, and they told the people what God was thinking, but still people did and ignored and still acted Bekeri. And so the Torah is telling us, right, that's the worst thing you can do. The worst thing you can do. If a person looks at the situation, looks at the world today, and goes about their business like nothing has changed, or that it's changed over there, but not for me. The Chafetz Chaim used to point out, if there was an earthquake someplace way on the other side of the world where Jews had yet to be living, didn't really affect them, or some natural disaster someplace else, he said, that's a message from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to all of us. Even those of us who are not directly affected by it, it's still talking to all of us, and we have to somehow wake up and take the message to heart. So this is the world today. This is the situation that we are confronted with today, right now, where the direction things are going and what's happening to the Jewish people. I mean, there's no question. The ICC, right, decides to issue a warrant for the arrest of the Israeli prime minister is bad enough. That's already bad enough. Anyhow, most of them are either Muslim or Muslim supporters. Don't be fooled by the letters, the fact it's called United Nations. Take a look at the roster and who's on board there, and you'll see that there's not many people countries that anyhow are friendly to Israel. That's the international forum to express their anti-Jewish feelings. But the fact that they're doing this already is bad enough. The fact that they're doing it, in a war that we're only fighting because they started it, and everything that has gone wrong is from their side. Well, you're a Jew and you're biased. Of course, you say that. No, I'll just show you the facts on the ground. We spoke about this last week and previous weeks. It could have all gone their way. There was plenty of opportunity for them to fix the situation, plenty, more than you can imagine, and they just would have got more and more and more. And they're the only people in the world that I know of who have received as much aid as they have and squandered it for the wrong things, demanding things they really can't have. And the fact that the world is so biased in their favor, stands behind them. I mean, half the time people are getting paid to show up, but it doesn't matter. The media reports this. Harbe shlichim lemakom. That's the point. That's the Bakeri part right here, right? You can find a reason or a crazy reason for what's going on, or why it's happening, right? But if someone's standing there with a gun pointing at you and they're on drugs and you're saying to them, you don't really want to do this. You took too many drugs, right? And you're probably addicted, so you need the money, but you don't really want to hurt me or rob. God forbid. Great, fantastic. So you explained the whole thing away. Didn't make a difference, not to him. He was, and the very fact that he wasn't so in touch with reality made him more vulnerable to do the wrong thing. So you can have all the logic in the world to explain what's going today. You can even say, over there, not me. Right now, I'm good. I'm fine. The situation for me right now is pleasant. I agree it could get worse and God forbid spill over. But in the meantime, I have my little area where I can do my thing and be pretty much uninterrupted as I go about my service of God in my quiet little community. A person could do that. But that would be a mistake, because it's a message that's global. God's talking to everybody. I'm not saying that everybody has to pick up, get a gun, put on a uniform, and go fight at the front. That's not for me to make a decision about. It's not my thing, right? But I am saying that you have to feel like it's all one people fighting one war at the end of history for one cause. And it's not anymore just for the sake of keeping Israel safe. We have been transitioning for a long time now, especially since World War II. Over the last 70, 80 years, believe it or not, we're getting to the end. I know listen, I talk about this all the time. I'm a believer, so to speak, at least up here. Down here, it's new. I've witnessed my own personal redemptions from situations and crises, and heard about smaller ones, and I've read about the ones in the past now, but thank God I haven't been in a situation yet where I have to worry about a real Geula like those living in the camps in the Holocaust and pogroms who had to face that life and death, or even the soldiers down in Gaza in the north where they're fighting and having to face the enemy, brutal enemies who don't work by the rules, don't fight by the rules. But it's like they're dealing with real life Geula situations. The Torah warns us in this week's parsha, the greatest strategy, the most important strategy for surviving the end of days, and Chevle Mashiach, as Hashem says, is not acting Bakeri, not desensitizing, not acting as if it doesn't affect you, not acting as if it's not real, not acting as if, no, this is just going to blow over, not using hope instead of logic, right, by saying, well, maybe it'll get better before it gets worse, and therefore nothing has to change. The status quo can be maintained. No, that is not a good strategy for the end of days. You have to follow this week's parsha. The Torah tells it to us specifically. You have to become the opposite. You have to become sensitized. You have to put the wonder back in life. You have to sit down and focus on the things you have and appreciate them full extent as you possibly can, because it's sitting in front of us, right? It's like, again, using an analogy is always the best thing in the world. But sometimes you make something, you eat, you prepare something, and it looks good. It does, right? Or someone prepares it for you, so you don't even know it's involved. Right, sitting there in front of you, and it looks nice. You take a bite, and all an explosion of taste inside of your mouth. Oh, wow, that is good. That is really good, and it was all there in front of you the entire time. For 25 seconds, for a whole minute, you didn't take a bite of this thing, and you had no idea what was going to happen once you did. But once you did, it's like, wow, right? And that's a small little example. All of life is the same way. Every aspect of your life. You have a pair of shoes. Just the technology to make them. The pants you're wearing, or the skirt you're wearing, or the food that you have, or the table, everything. I mean, just look at some of the patterns. I still can't fathom. You look at patterns, in linen or things like that, and how the bed sheets and how they put all that color in, they made it over and sell it to you, and the price is still reasonable. It's like incredible. That's again, and we're not talking about the stars, the universe, all those other huge, bigger things, and all the miracles, right? And every day we should say right? Every day that all the miracles that Kodesh Baruch Hu does for us, what are they? Make a list. Make a list. Sit down and ask yourself, what are those miracles that take place every single day for me? The Yetzer Hara goes, don't do that. That's going to be the most boring, unproductive thing you can do, because he knows, she knows, whatever. The moment you do that is the moment your life starts to change, and you start taking more control over the Yetzer Hara, who just lives to make you live precary. But that's the most dangerous approach a person can have to the end days. Right? And if a person can overcome that and do the opposite, that will elevate them and raise them up, most of us going in the world, and protect them at the time we need the protection the most. So have a good Shabbos, a great Shabbos, a peaceful Shabbos, a safe Shabbos for all of Klal Yisrael.